Welcome to Gotta Run. This is Will Sanchez. My special guest today is Darris Crandall. He is the winner of the recent Five Borough Foot Locker Challenge, representing Brooklyn. But it was a very, very special race because Darris runs to honor his beloved son, Jackson Crandall. I'm thrilled to have Darris as a guest.
Thank you for having me.
Before we go into learning more about your son, Jackson, let's learn more about you.
Sure. I was born in Florida on MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa and was there until the age of 2. Moved back to Pennsylvania, right along the New York border, and grew up on a dairy farm there and spent my childhood on a farm until the age of 12. And at that point moved to the Elmira Binghamton area, kind of a more populated area. Finished out high school there and went on to study chemical engineering for 2.5 years at University of Buffalo and proceeded to get my degree in finance from Ithaca College.
But let's go back to that dairy farm.
Sure.
Did you learn how to milk cows?
I learned how to milk cows, I learned how to hunt, I learned how to fish, probably a lot of things that not my average Wall Street colleagues know how to do.
Absolutely. Wow, sounds like a lot of fun. So besides that, you get to do a lot of running around? And
yeah, I had probably a pretty active childhood, I would say. Learned a lot about work ethic, spent a lot of time with my grandfather at that age. He taught me a lot of great life lessons about hard work and a lot of practical common sense experience, I guess you could say. Learning how to fix things, learning how to think problems through, and I've always given him a lot of credit to my success in life and having a great upbringing.
That's great. I know your grandfather passed away. Is there a story you can share about him that amplifies, what he meant to you?
I remember when he passed away, actually, I was in the middle of studying for my finals, my first semester at Ithaca College, and I had a good semester and was going into the final season and just needed to score well on my finals, and he passed away. To take a step back, my grandmother had also been sick at that time and had passed away right after Thanksgiving, and he happened to pass away 13 days after the fact. And so we always thought there was a lot of significance to the number 13 because at the time there were 13 grandchildren,
mm-hmm.
and they had passed away 13 days apart. And while always, I guess, perceived as a negative
right.
number or a superstitious number, I don't know why, but I've always found comfort in it and always thought it was unique in some way that I probably don't understand, but it seemed to come up a lot at that point in my life. So anyway, I went into that final season and needed to score well, and ended up, even despite the challenges, I knew he would not want to be the reason for me not getting straight A's on my finals, and
mm-hmm.
Ended up doing exactly that.
Did you go to Wall Street after that?
After I graduated, I actually worked for Marriott International for
the hotel
2 years.
chain.
Yeah. Worked for them actually while my degree was in finance. I worked in the accounting field for them as an assistant controller. It seemed to me to be a great way to quickly get management experience, and I worked for Marriott for 2 years until I decided to jump back into finance, back into the Wall Street arena.
Now, during that time, were you athletically involved? How did you get fit?
I ran track and field rather casually, I guess you could say, in high school, and was actually a shorter distance runner at the time. And when I was going to college and working part-time jobs to pay for school, a good friend of mine, Robert Becky, was my boss, and he and I got into running, and he would run the 3-mile distance, and I realized that, hey, that 5K distance is kind of an okay thing. It's a little out of my wheelhouse in terms of running fast, but
mm-hmm.
getting a little bit older and learning how to pace yourself, which I guess is part of the lessons you learn in life, is to take things slower. And I realized that I was okay at that distance, and started running local 5K races, local 10K races, always thought it was good to contribute the registration fee to whatever the monies were going for in terms of charities.
At some point, you must have gotten married because, you're supporting your son, Jackson, and his two sisters.
That's correct.
So tell us about, the start of your family.
Met my wife my ex-wife at Marriott, and we had our daughter Paige, who just recently turned 14. My daughter Madison it was her birthday. She was turning 4 the day Jackson was born. He was born 5 weeks premature and born on her birthday. And I've always made jokes that not only did he make her a middle child, but was born with special needs and stole her birthday along the way. So kind of hit the trifecta, I think, in terms of needing therapy at some point in life.
Your child was born with Down syndrome?
That's correct. And we did not know that Jackson had Down syndrome while he was in utero.
Okay. But tell us, what is Down syndrome?
Down syndrome is quite simply, you have an extra chromosome on the 21st pair. We have 23 pairs of chromosomes, and it goes by the name trisomy 21 because of that third chromosome. So for those unaware, March 21st is National Down Syndrome Day for 321.
Okay. What's some of the misconceptions that people have about folks that have Down syndrome? Are they mentally retarded?
Well, I mean, that is, I guess, the technical term for what he would be in terms of mental capacity. A lot of the Down syndrome advocacy foundations, have had a push out there to get rid of the R word. The word retard has often been used as a way of comparing yourself to someone of lesser standards. And so I've seen, and I think nationally we've seen that there's a very negative stigma in terms while the word being mentally retarded is obviously very, very common use. The word retard, as it is often referred to in the negative connotation, there's been a wide attempt to eradicate that.
Right.
And when I ran the New York City Triathlon in 2012, I ran for Best Buddies of New York, which is a Down syndrome advocacy foundation, and that was the flagship that I ran under, was about the R word. And at the time, I remember saying that, if my child who is battling cancer and fighting for his life and is somebody that you would refer to a retard, then I certainly stand to challenge you on that.
Okay, absolutely. But you mentioned a second challenge.
Yep.
Besides Jackson being diagnosed or having Down syndrome, a few years later he came down with a deadly disease. Tell us about that.
Yeah, Jackson was 2 months away from turning 3 years old, and we had, in hindsight now, a lot of people ask, how did you know, and how did you know he got leukemia? There's no flag that goes off and says, hey, you're sick today. We realized through a couple things. One, his sleep habits had changed, and this is all kind of hindsight now, putting the puzzle back together. His sleep patterns were erratic for a couple of weeks. We realized that he had a mark under his eye that we thought was a bee sting or some kind of a bug bite that possibly got infected that almost turned into a bruise. He fell off a small footstool, a padded footstool, onto carpeting and couldn't get back up on his feet. And Kim thought that he had possibly twisted an ankle or injured his leg in some way. She took him to an orthopedist. They thought maybe a hairline fracture, maybe not. They put a splint on it. So that story developed over a course of several weeks, and it turned out it was leukemia. It was the leukemia cells in his leg bones that was causing so much excruciating pain that it creates actually hairline fractures in those bones.
Wow.
And he could not, the pain was probably so excruciating that he just simply couldn't bear weight on it. And because Jackson is nonverbal, we unfortunately did not have the luxury of him being able to say exactly what that pain was. So just to wrap up how we knew, it was the 4th of July weekend. We were up at my mother's upstate New York. I was giving him a haircut. First time we'd ever tried to give him a haircut at home. He was screaming bloody murder. He didn't appreciate what was happening, didn't understand it. And that action of crying and being so flushed caused what's called petechiae on his face. And so petechiae is like little bloodshot broken vessels at the surface of the skin.
Oh, gosh.
And if you Google petechiae, first thing that pops up is leukemia. So we drove home, made an appointment for our doctor, our pediatrician, and with a simple blood test, they immediately told Kim that your son has leukemia and raced obviously straight to the hospital.
Oh, God, that must have been a devastating blow to you, your wife, his sisters.
Yep, it absolutely was. And my knee-jerk reaction was, while I try to maintain a pretty positive outlook across the board, to me it just seemed extremely unfair that a child that was always going to have a life of challenge and developmental issues, that now he was struggling to live, that he may not survive. It just seemed incredibly unfair, and it made me question faith, made me question God, made me question the universe, and spent a lot of time being angry and trying to get my head around it.
Gosh.
But quite quickly, with 2 older siblings, you realize you can't wallow in your misery for too long, because
they need you.
They can't see the fear that you have, and you obviously want to be supportive of them and obviously put your best foot forward and hope for the best, and that's what we did.
But Jackson, he's a very, very special child. I've seen his photos. He seemed to always be smiling.
He is, yeah. As I said, he's nonverbal, but it's a personality that he has that is certainly unmistakable. There's ways of communicating with him by way of sign language and some of the key words that he can say and speak, and while spending enough time around him, you begin to learn what he's asking for and what he needs. But yes, one of the things that I said in the video for his fundraising effort was he's handled all of this with a smile, and that to me is so remarkable. I've been asked by a lot of people, do you think it's better that he has Down syndrome, that maybe he didn't have the exact understanding of what was going on in terms of being sick? And I certainly don't know the answer to that. I certainly wish he didn't have Down syndrome.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe it is better. I know he did. He handled so much of being on 3 years and 2 months of chemo with a smile on his face. And
really?
Yeah. And
wow.
I think certainly have his family, his mother and his 2 sisters to thank for that. I remember times when Jack was in the heat of being on chemo and couldn't keep food down and lost a lot of weight and had lost all his hair and was deathly sick. And there were times when I remember his sisters cleaning vomit off the floor and singing songs to him just to amuse him and make him laugh and try to get him to eat. And those are lessons that not all bigger sisters learn.
Wow, his sister sounds very special as well. What were some of the organizations that you turned to that were helpful?
Yeah, part of the reason behind the spirit of giving back now, and thank God Jackson's healthy today, and
he's in remission.
He's in remission. He's been in mathematical remission, I guess you could say, since the first month he was on chemo. He's been off chemo now for two years. He's been off treatment for 2 years. He's in September, or I guess it would be in August, September or August, was 5 years of being in remission. So I treated the New York City Marathon as his 5-year anniversary of being in remission. And some of the charities that helped us along the way that I certainly have never lost sight of are the Ronald McDonald House. Was tremendous to us in the very early days. While we were fortunate to live near really good hospitals, the Stephen Cohen Hospital in Long Island, where Jackson was treated, we lived 25 minutes away. But in those first few weeks, he was hospitalized for the first month and a half. And so being able to stay right there and work shifts back and forth and giving the kids a place to go and something to do, we thought it was a really tremendous charity. And I remember walking in there some nights and having meals, and you see all the volunteers that are there just because to cook and to make conversation with the families that are there, many families traveling from abroad or from far and wide. And whether it's the company that happens to be there, my company that I work for now, Annalee Capital, they do great things to support the Ronald McDonald House of New York City.
Wow, what were some of the other charities?
Friends of Karen was a charity that it started with us, I think, that first Christmas, where it isn't just the sick child, but it's the siblings. And so they wanted a Christmas list of what the girls would want for Christmas. And it wasn't just getting toys out of a grab bag that they happen to have back at the headquarters. They send people out and actually purchase the gifts that the kids ask for. That next fall, when the girls were going to school, Friends of Karen provided the school supply list. So anybody who has kids going into that grade year, as you know, there are all kinds of supplies and folders and notebooks and backpacks, and Friends of Karen provided all of that. They also, I remember, just again in the spirit of thinking about the siblings and not just the sick child, they paid for and sent an art therapist to the house once a week, where the art therapist would come in and do projects and do paintings and do crafts with the girls. So you need to stay mindful, I think, as a parent when you have such a sick child, that all the attention obviously can't be on that one sibling. And Jackson with Down syndrome, and then with cancer, it's really easy to say, to spend so much focus there.
Yeah. There's a story about one of your daughters. She asked something very special from Santa.
I just recently posted it on Facebook, but it was a page. And she wrote this glowing letter to Santa about, "You're so cool, you bring great gifts, I love this time of year." And ultimately, she closed the letter out, "Don't bring me any toys this year, just make my brother better." And I think what was most special about that, to me as a parent, to Kim as a parent, was nobody put her up to that.
She's a very special little girl.
She wrote that letter and she tucked it inside the Christmas tree.
She also had the smarts to leave a little space for Santa to reply. I think he even said "Dear Paige" so he wouldn't have to spell it.
She auto-populated the reply.
That's a great word, auto-populated. Kids today, they're into that stuff. You said you ran the New York City Marathon recently, but you also did, as I opened up my introduction, you were a member of the Foot Locker Five Borough Challenge for this year, representing Brooklyn. Well, tell us about that process.
An application process, and I think in the beginning, the early part, after I filled out my application, New York Roadrunners sent out an email to everybody why you run and what inspires you, and there was a separate application for the Five Borough piece, and just wrote a small paragraph about Jackson and why I run and what motivates me and what inspires me. And the same reasons I ran the New York City Marathon back in 2011 were still true today. And I run to honor his courage, and I run to honor his strength in battling and doing what he did. I say it all the time, but running 26 miles compared to what somebody battling cancer does it's really a small feat.
Okay. 2015 was the Foot Locker, and you're telling me that as a group, you start out together, right?
Yeah, we start together, and it was really great getting to meet that group. It was Heather, Mandy, Michael, and Kenji, and we ran the first 13 miles of the race together that morning, and it's such a huge tribute to be able to start the marathon. The wheelchair groups go off first, and then we get to go off before the elite women and the elite men start. So
you have to bridge to yourselves.
Which is I ran it in 2011, and it was such a different experience. I was with the masses of humanity, and to run the bridge alone was quite an honor.
With 4 others side by side.
Yeah, that was our first time, all 5 of us running. So I'll say the first few miles especially was a lot of just getting to the feel for the pace of one another. And then, of course, getting into Brooklyn, I had the home court advantage, I guess you could say, there, because the bulk of the race is run in Brooklyn. So I just thought it was tremendous to be able to run and interact so much with the crowd and hear them. We all had jerseys with our borough represented on the front, and to hear so many people yelling for Brooklyn, and I also had Jackson's name on the front.
Go Jackson.
So yeah, I mean, whether they thought that was my name or not, just to hear him being commemorated like that by so many people was...
Was your family watching on TV as well?
No, I had family that met me at mile 7. We had grandstand seats, and fortunately had Jackson in the girls waiting for me at the finish line when I got there.
Oh, wow, that must have been tremendous.
Yeah.
And then I think you mentioned at the halfway mark, you guys are on your own, the 5 boroughs. Now the challenge starts.
Yeah, it's really, they call it the race within the race. It's the 5 borough challenge within the New York City Marathon, but there's really a race within that race.
You won.
I did win.
You represented Brooklyn.
Yeah, and I believe we're at least a repeat of winning the 5 borough challenge.
I see. So you keep the trophy, whatever it is they give Brooklyn.
The Tiffany plate stays in Brooklyn.
Oh, so, excellent.
Proudly displayed.
So where's it displayed? At your house?
It's in my house.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess you get to keep it and create a new plate for them.
Yeah.
It's not like the Stanley Cup.
No, I don't have to. No, I don't have to hand it back to anyone.
Well, that's the beautiful thing about running. In fact, a lot of people got into running because they get to keep the bling.
Yeah, that's right.
What's some of your future challenges that you have, in terms of honoring Jackson?
Right. Well, I mean, I just want to. I can't have this interview without saying what a tremendous thank you I owe all the people that contributed to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society through this effort. Together, we raised a little over $52,000 for cancer research for this New York City Marathon in November. And we were the highest individual fundraiser for this event. And crossing the 50,000 mark, we are able to dictate which area of research that money goes to with LLS.
Oh, really?
So I obviously want it to go wherever the money's best spent, and but the important thing I thought there was they're going to involve us more and keep us informed of the research and where that money goes. And we never could have done it without the tremendous support of so many former colleagues, present colleagues, friends, family, strangers. Jackson's story is a touching story, and I still cry every time I watch his video.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And just to see how that touched so many people, and I think about it like this: you always want your kids to do great things, and I know Jackson's never gonna be the captain of the varsity football team facing Down syndrome, but what he can do and what he has done is something that not a lot of other kids can do.
Yeah.
He survives.
Yeah.
And he fought and he survived cancer.
Yeah,
and he inspires people along the way. And if that's
he's 8 years old now.
He's 8 years old, and he's done. He's accomplished a lot more than quite a few have.
Great. He has a great family, and people are more and more accepting of Down syndrome. People with Down syndrome. Because of wonderful organizations all over the country. I think there's a TV show that features a Down syndrome actor.
Yeah, there are several individuals on television, and that's the challenging thing about that diagnosis is it's so broad spectrum. You could read at a college level, and you may never be able to read or write or do anything.
But there's always a chance for improvement, I guess.
Always.
Constant.
I mean, that's part of being relentless, right? Like you never stop trying to learn and to do more.
Okay, that was his tag, Relentless for Jack, the tag. That was how you tagged all your photos and blog.
Yeah, Jackson's Twitter handle is Relentless for Jack. And I knew he'd made it when Tiki Barber sent him a friend request after I got to meet him at one of the New York Roadrunners events. He followed Jackson on Twitter at Relentless for Jack.
All right.
And so next for me is the New York City Half, which is March 20th.
Okay, that's a lottery thing. So you got in?
I got in. I actually got in a year before, and I rolled my entry over to 15.
All right. And then professionally, you said you still work on Wall Street?
I work for Annaly Capital. It's a mortgage REIT. We're the largest.
And it sounds like they're very, very supportive.
They're a great group, yeah. We're a small firm. We're maybe 150 people. And
oh, this is a family. Gosh,
yeah,
you're that small.
And our founder, Mike Farrell, actually passed away from cancer. So he passed away several years ago. So that mindset that it can affect anyone and ultimately affects everyone in one way or another is something that I don't think anyone at our firm doesn't keep close to heart.
I wish you and your family great success and the best that doctors can offer to help your son. It sounds like he's going to be a role model for years and years and years to come.
Well, my greatest wish is that ultimately no one needs to take advantage of the money that they donated. I hope no one has to face blood cancer in any way. It's a horrible disease, and I truly do feel that where research is going with a lot of the genetic discovery, that we're close to being able to fix this.
We can only hope and pray for that. That would be a tremendous day when we can find a cure for any of the cancers.
Yeah.
And certainly Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, through their own charities, like yourself, over the years, they've raised over $1 billion straight for research.
Yeah, it's
tremendous.
It's amazing, and I know ultimately Jackson's chemo and the protocol that he was on, Jackson's survival, while I can't put my finger on it exactly, is probably somewhat attributable to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. So I can't say enough about the team and training effort that they have involving sport along with fundraising, and above all else, it's just I love running for the fact that having a race on the calendar, it keeps me honest at the dinner table. It keeps me honest when it comes time to snack. I love knowing that I've got a race upcoming, and it gives me something to focus on and helps me keep in shape.
Great. Listen to that note. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Sharing your story.